Welcoming everyone to a live special episode of the Hawks Eye podcast. And obviously, we're going to be discussing the Seattle Seahawks acquisition of Rashid Shaheed from the New Orleans Saints. As we know, the trade deadline is finally passed. It's now 3:45 p.m. Pacific time, and you've seen all the sources and everyone kind of talking about what went on during this trade deadline. The Jets obviously decided to burn it all down to the ground and try and rebuild that team. And they're going to try this, I think, for the 10th time potentially in the last decade. They're going to try and rebuild. It's one of those things where if you're a Jets fan, you weren't with them with the first rebuild, you can't be with them for the second rebuild. But we're going to talk about the Seahawks today, what this acquisition means for this team. How does this, shape this offense going forward? What to look for even in the offseason potentially for the Seahawks, and some of the other things that I had heard throughout the day in regards to how active Seattle was during this trade deadline period. We'll also take your guys' comments, your questions about this. How are you feeling as Seahawk fans with the acquisition of Shaheed here? So before we get into all of that, if you guys haven't already, and a bunch of you aren't, subscribe up to the channel, click that notification button, click the like button, get involved in this community, which is so great. And with our chat moderators, Amy and Victor there, and Ian Victor doing such a great job on that end, the community is really growing in that aspect as well. So we'll get into everything revolving around this trade and what the Seahawks did today right after this. So the Seattle Seahawks acquire Rashid Shaheed today from the New Orleans Saints for a 4th and 5th round pick in 2026. Honestly, for me, I love this move. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are kind of going, well, was that too steep of a price to pay for, a guy that's going to come in and be your number 2, your number 3 receiver potentially? I will say this right now about Shaheed, in my personal opinion. He comes in here knowing an offense, excelling in this offense as he did last year before his injury, and he brings something this offense does not currently have. Yes, you have Torrey Horton, and yes, what he did on Sunday night was phenomenal. Torrey Horton is, I think, in some respects, a better all-around receiver. He doesn't possess necessarily the true deep threat scare that Shaheed does to teams. Shaheed is considered one of the top deep threats in the NFL. But the thing that he's going to do more than anything, I think this is what's kind of getting overlooked, is everyone kind of looks and compares, okay, look at what Sam and JSN are doing, and he's going to immediately lighten coverage on JSN, which is true, but it's what Shaheed's going to do for this run game. And I think that was the selling factor in this from Klint Kubiak and John Benton to Mike McDonald and John Schneider on why to go acquire this player is this is something we're missing in our offense to get teams out of stacking the box. If you want to stack the box and go single high on Seattle now, it's more of a, okay, pick your poison. Either JSN may go over the top or Shaheed's going to go over the top of you. You want to keep doing what you're doing as defenses, that's fine. We're just going to beat you this way until you guys decide to lighten the box. And that to me is the biggest thing for Seattle here is, having teams have to back out into a too high shell look might lighten this box for that O-line enough that they can target better. We can start hitting this run game better. That's the thing for me that is going to be the biggest factor that Shaheed brings, plus his ability to run jet sweeps, and you can use him in the special teams. Like, there are so many things to like, and I don't think, again, John Schneider's been pretty adamant when he goes and makes these trades for guys on expiring contracts. He doesn't necessarily give out a contract right away to these guys. Like, that's just not something that he has done recently. You look at Leonard Williams, you look at Ernest Jones, not something that's in his forte, but they bring them in and these guys go and they get to see how they're going to interact with this team. And from what I have been told, there is a strong belief within Seattle that this is going to be more than a 8-game rental. This is going to be a guy that they think is going to fit in this culture. He's 26 years old. I don't think you're looking at a guy that's going to break the bank as a receiver for you, even though you got to pay. Oh, sorry about that. Small little glitch there on that end. But those are some things I look at for Seattle when I think about this trade. And so the thing I'll say also is when you look at where you've got injuries now in this room, right? We're talking about the factor of Cooper Kupp is injured. He's got the hamstring and the heel. Jake Bobo's got the Achilles injury. Derek Young's got the quad issue. You had to elevate Ricky White and Cody White last game, which was fine. And Cody White, I think, is going to be a little bit more involved in this offense potentially. Just because I don't know what the status of Derek is going to be because of the fact when Mike McDonald talked about him less than a week ago, I should say, you had a guy that he said could potentially end up on IR. You've got Jake Bobo that's dealing with an Achilles injury, and you don't want to mess around with that. And to be honest, I think, people have talked about, well, does this mean Kupp's off the team next year? Like, is this going to be Horton, JSN, and Shaheed now, and they're going to get rid of Kupp? They love Kupp. Kupp is not going to go anywhere unless Kupp wants to leave the team. I don't think that's going to be a case. I think your 4 receivers next year are set in stone as they currently are. I think it's going to be Horton, Kupp, JSN, and Shaheed. They're going to find a way to get Shaheed done unless he completely does not want to be in Seattle, which I can't imagine is going to be the case. And so I think this is more of an indictment of Jake Bobo doesn't fit on this roster. And that's it's hard to say that because we all love Bobo and there's so many people that have the hashtag more Bobo. But there's things about Bobo's game that just still haven't been able to translate even in this offense when he has been healthy. He blocks well, yes, but he struggles to separate still. He doesn't have a lot of the quick twitch you're looking for. So I think this is more of this is Seattle looking and going, okay, we need to have 4 strong receivers in this offense that can run good routes, that can separate and all kind of bring something different to the table. This also takes some pressure off of Torrey Horton having to step in and truly be a receiver too as a rookie. And yes, what he's been doing this year, the touchdowns and everything have been great. But if there ever came a game where a team did figure out how to take away JSN, I don't know if Torrey Horton is ready to step into a situation of necessarily being the main other option for the offense. And I know there's Barner and I know there's Arroyo, but now that you've got Shaheed, now you've, again, lightened that load on Horton, where if you go into an 11 personnel look with 3 receivers, teams are going to be scared enough of JSN and Shaheed out there. And if Kupp's not back yet and it's Horton as that third guy, he can get a lot more favorable matchups and coverage because of the fact teams are going to be so terrified. So Shaheed's being on this team now changes a lot of how teams will have to play Seattle defensively. They're not going to be able to roll coverage as much to JSN because if they do, guarantee you it's going to be very simple. Here, throw it to Rashid and let him go get it. Derek Carr retweeted it today when he saw that Seattle had traded. He said, just fire the ball out there and let him go get it. Like, that's what he did when he was in New Orleans, and it works pretty well. So overall for me, I give this a B+. Obviously, this could turn into an A if Seattle is able to get a contract worked out and, you keep this guy around here for 2 more years. But right now I give this a B+ by John Schneider. There's going to be some things I will discuss, some of the other stuff that I had heard during the trade deadline. And again, I will lead with this. I won't tell you everything that I've heard or the exact details of it. I will give you guys tidbits of what I've heard because that is how I protect my, integrity to the sources that I have that know what's going on with this team and within the NFL. And so it's just a way for me to show that level of respect to the people that I'm connected to that way. But I will try and give you guys as much as I can. The other thing I think that's a big sign out of today's trade deadline, for Seattle is the fact that they didn't go get a linebacker. That's another big factor here today. That might tell you that, and things I've heard is Ernest Jones' injury might not be as bad as they initially thought. It could be a situation where he maybe only misses 1 or 2 weeks at the most. And that's a real positive sign. And I think the other thing this tells you too is they are comfortable with Drake Thomas, Tyrese Knight, and the other person that I've heard really good things about, and I'll give credit, Dan Vian's mentioned it on his show as well, and I've heard similar things, is that Chris Paul is someone this staff absolutely loves. Very similarly to how they love Drake Thomas, they love Chris Paul. So don't be surprised if Ernest is out that Chris Paul doesn't get activated and get more involvement in this defense, not just as a special teams guy. That's something to kind of keep an eye out for going forward with this team. You know, the other thing, I know everyone wanted us to go get a guard, and Seattle was in on some guards. They sniffed around, they were checking in. I know a lot of people wanted Cesar Ruiz from New Orleans, and what I'm told is it just got to a point where New Orleans realized they wanted to keep and hang on to Ruiz. Part of it to do with the McCoy injuries that he's been having at center. Ruiz has the versatility to flip inside. And so they wanted to keep him around because they're not sure if McCoy is a long-term option in some respect because of his injury history. And so that's why they moved Penning so late on the trade deadline day, because Ruiz was involved in talks and teams were sniffing around and trying to figure out what it would take to get him. That's why that ultimately didn't happen. And I think the one thing I'll say that I've heard is Seattle is going to be very aggressive in the offseason at upgrading the right guard position. They do identify it as a weakness on this O-line. There's, the fact that they really do like Jalen Sundell, and there's been things that I guess they realized throughout their week off there at the bye that Sundell's having to make up for some of the deficiencies of Bradford, and it's causing Sundell to be a player that's struggling at points, and it looks like he's struggling where really he's trying to make up for another player. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. But the one thing I know, last night I said the Seahawks are going big game hunting. That's what I, had been told and from my sources, and they did. They truly did go big game hunting. I can say they went big game hunting pretty much right up till about 12:45 Pacific time today. They were big game hunting, and they were going after franchise-altering players. The thing I'll say is that, they did really work on Max Crosby. They were really working on trying to find a way to get Max Crosby out of Vegas. The Raiders are going through a bunch of issues internally there within that organization that makes it difficult. Very much like Cincinnati, very much like Miami, when you don't have a coaching staff and a GM that are aligned on the vision of how this team needs to be constructed, it can make trade talks very difficult because you get different parties wanting different things. And that's kind of what happened with the Crosby situation. And, it'll be a thing where I look at it in the long run, and I think this is going to be very much like the Marshawn Lynch. I don't think John's necessarily done pursuing Max. I think he's going to come back around to that in the offseason. But the thing that I'll say in the big scheme of things is I am also happy Seattle didn't go out and just acquire some edge player. They didn't just go grab some guy to grab an edge player to add to this group. They look at it and they go, okay, we can't go get the big guy that we want. We're now going to be okay with what we're currently producing. So that's what I'll say on the front of that. They did, have calls in on other players as well. They did sniff around Miami, throughout the day, but it just came to a part that they were very much trying to go big. They view this as their window is now opening as a team to make Super Bowl runs and Super Bowl appearances. And they're going to go and they're going to swing for the fences. And so that's something as an organization, you got to kind of be happy with. They did come out with a piece to something to add to their team. And you listen to a bunch of the national media now, and they're all talking about how scary Seattle is. Well, we all kind of knew they were already scary. But now everyone's kind of taking notice. The thing I'd heard from a couple individuals that are connected to other NFC West teams is the Rams and 49ers are very annoyed and frankly pissed that Seattle added this weapon. They had hoped that some other team would have picked up on Shaheed, and there was a bit of a bidding war for him, which is why Seattle had to give up that fourth and that fifth to get him and acquire his services, because they were hoping he was going to end up somewhere else, not within their own division, not with the coordinator that we was familiar with, and not add to the number one receiver in passing game right now in the NFL. So those are some things to take away from that. You know, outside of, those type of things, with this team, Reek Woolen didn't get traded, and I didn't expect that to happen. Again, unless it was for a massive package deal. That was something where I just, Reek's been playing well the last 2 weeks, and you don't get rid of a good corner at this point just to get rid of a good corner. You need to have something coming back in the form of a, piece the other way that's going to help, balance out that loss. But you look at some of the other teams that were out there, Dallas, Logan Wilson, Williams, they went out and made some big trades and stuff. I don't know, yes, they are good players. I'm not going to dispute that, but I don't know if that all of a sudden makes Dallas this big threat as a team. I look at some of the other trades that, transpired, and the Rams and 49ers didn't make any. This, to me, the way I'll put Shaheed into perspective and the way I look at him and his acquisition, this is very much like when Emmanuel Sanders ended up with the 49ers and they got a player that gave them a little bit of something that they didn't necessarily have and helped their offense unlock a part of it that was struggling to be consistent. And for me, this isn't, we're going to obviously unlock our passing game. We've been explosive. This is going to unlock your running game. This is going to help alleviate some of the pressure on the offensive line in this running attack because teams cannot stack the box. And if they do, who knows? The Cardinals might come out on Sunday and be like, nothing's changed. We're going to go stack the box in Seattle and see what happens. We'll test it, see if it works. And they may get burned multiple times early on in that game from Seattle's going, okay, cool. We're just going to keep doing what we do. The thing that I hope doesn't occur, and this is where I get a little bit concerned, is I don't want to see Seattle all of a sudden, okay, now that we've got Cooper Kupp and we got Torrey Horton already and JSN, and they're all working, and now we've added Shaheed, okay, we're going to get out of our 12 personnel. We're going to get out of our 21 personnel. We're going to play more in 11. I don't want to see that. I want their 11 to be more effective and more efficient in some aspects, which with lighter boxes and stuff will be able to help. But this team is so good in 12 and 21 personnel as an offense with the condensed splits, with a bunch of the things that they do, just because you've added a speed demon over top. And sometimes coordinators can get like this. I hope this isn't the case. Don't go away from what works already. Don't, be, I'm so enamored with my new toy. I've got to change everything we do to highlight that part of the new offense. Just sprinkle Shaheed in. Get him on those jet sweeps that you ran JSN on Sunday night. Some of those deep shots that were going to JSN, maybe those go to Rashid Shaheed now. Those are the types of ways you bring that weapon in and use it effectively without completely disturbing the functionality of your offense. And that's the one thing that concerns me the most. I don't want to see this offense get completely, rewrote on a new path because we've added a speed demon over the top. So that's the one thing, I'm going to be interested to see. And so when we'll get into some Q&As right now. I see a bunch of you already in the chat, which is fantastic. I can't, appreciate that enough. We got MC here over on Twitter. So again, if you guys are watching this on Twitter, post your comments in on the Twitter feed side. They will populate, and I will be able to bring them up on screen and answer any questions you guys have over there on the Twitter side of things. MC goes, I can't imagine Kupp is on the team next year. Have to pay Shaheed, JSN contract looming. I bet you Kupp is on the team next year because what Kupp brings is what we saw a little bit on Sunday night. The leadership factor, those type of things. Again, they're going to pay JSN. This team does have a lot of cap money, and you're probably not paying Reek Woolen next year. You're not probably paying Ken Walker next year or Boye Mafe. Those are two guys, Boye Mafe and Reek Woolen, that we had heard throughout the weekend, and I can verify they were a part of trade discussions. So that wasn't a situation where they were completely off the table. Those guys were actively, names that were coming up in packages if Seattle was going to make a move. So, not having to pay, if you think of that 2022 draft class, now you've paid Abe Lucas out of it. Yes. You're going to pay Charles Cross. And, Derek Hall will probably be the next one that gets paid next offseason, but you're not paying, and that's, he's part of another class in entirety, but you're not paying Reek. You're not paying. There's a chance they may not pay Kobe Bryant because they may like what they've got with Okada, that they may not pay Kobe Bryant, or they may say, hey, Kobe, go find out what you can get on the market and come back and talk to us. And so I don't see a way that they're going to just all of a sudden, They love Cooper Kupp in that building, what he brings to this team and to this locker room, very much like DeMarcus Lawrence. They are foundational pieces for Mike Macdonald's message and how he wants his message to be portrayed. That sometimes, to us as fans, we don't necessarily see it because we're not in the building, we're not around the team, but sometimes teams value that more organizationally than we put credit into. And that's why I don't think Cooper Kupp is going anywhere next year. What else do we got in here? Johnny comes in with stoked. K-Soon, anticlimactic. Yeah, it wasn't as necessarily, as booming as some people thought. I thought, from what I had heard going into it, that there was a chance, and there was a chance that there could have been some big news. And that's why you saw guys like Jordan Schultz and Adam Schefter on Pat McAfee being like, there are still trades coming through. Like, that's kind of the way it was. Amy Holmes, one of our moderators in the chat here, happy about the Shaheed get. Think that will help lighten the boxes and hopefully help the run game. Totally. I think it definitely will. It may take a week or 2 or 3 to see that really start taking effect. But once this team starts using Shaheed and taking some of those shots down the field, you're going to see, I think, the real benefit of what that acquisition has done. Ian Victor in the chat. Always good to see you, Ian, another moderator of the chat. I have some theories and nuggets for what potentially can go down this offseason. Oh, I'm interested to hear what those are, Ian. Those are definitely some things I want to for sure hear. We got Alex in here. A little bummed out we didn't go for a big-time pass rusher, but it's cool. Let's go Hawks. Again, they tried. I can tell you that they actually tried. It wasn't just smoke and, yeah, we're going to say this. Like, they were working hard to make that happen. I can tell you that right now, and I don't think it's over. What else we got in here? M99, it was wide open this year. This was not to be the difference example. Rams a few years back, and the Hawks blew it. I tend to disagree with you. I don't think the Hawks blew it. I don't think, you can – it takes 2 to tango at the end of the day, right? Like, if you've got a team that has internal conflict and say the GM is saying, yes, I want to move this player, and the coach is saying, no, I don't want to, and they're butting heads, there's a chance that doesn't work out. You look at the Bengals. They kept Trey Hendrickson. They should have traded Trey Hendrickson 100%. There's no value in keeping him because he's probably going to walk in free agency anyways. So to turn around and be like the Hawks blew it. No, the Hawks added something that they didn't have. And right now the offensive line is playing good. They're not playing great. They're not top 10 in offensive line, but they're also not, I would say, one of the worst units in the NFL like we've seen in the past. So just coming and be like they blew it, I think that's just a misguided, opinion on it. It's your opinion, and that's fine, and I totally respect that's your opinion. I just think it's a little misguided. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing comes in. Story going around is that we offered the Raiders 2 firsts, a second, Mafe and Reek Woolen for the Raiders were ready, but Pete said no at the last minute. That's a really good theory and story that's going around, and I am not going to neither confirm nor deny that. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing, but that would probably be around the package you would have had to give up or put on the table for the Raiders to consider it. And this is where we talk about internal struggles, right? You've got a coach that doesn't want to get rid of a player. You've got a team potentially that does. And sometimes even in other situations, like what I'd heard with stuff going on with even Teller and, Joel Bitonio there or Benito in Cleveland, and even Myles Garrett, like with other teams trying to call in and acquire those players, that they'd be talking with the GM and all of a sudden the owner gets involved and the owner starts making like, no, we're not doing it unless it's this, this, and this. That's one thing I think we got to look at here with the Seahawks, which I think is really a great thing, is that, yes, Jody Allen, some of us may look at it and be like, hey, she's an absentee owner. She's not heavily involved. No, she's involved, but she also understands to let the people that know football be the ones that make a lot more of the decisions. She may give her opinion. Her and Bert Cole may give their opinion, but at the ultimate day, like, there's a reason John Schneider's the president of football operations and the GM. They trust his opinion on what he is doing to construct this team, and so far, John's done a pretty good job of that. Islam in here goes, Shaheed was almost a 1,000-yard receiver, was on pace last year before the injuries hit him. Complements JSN well and can open up things to the run game and for the tight ends. Also adds value on special teams, 100%. And he's only 26. So you can sign him for a 2-year deal and you get him till he's 28, and then you can see what you want to do after that, because then maybe his speed starts to slow, and Torrey Horton at that point is probably ready to take on some more of that role. What else can we got going on in here? Steph comes in with a lot of Saints fans are sad to see Shaheed go. Yeah, and players too. Like, he had a lot of love there. Because he's, from everything I've heard, he's a great locker room guy. He's a good kid, worked really hard to get where he's at right now, and he has a bright future. So, the Seattle could be getting a situation where they're getting the guy just before he hits his prime, which would be another ideal John Schneider trade. Our friend Dan Viens is in the chat. Dan, always appreciate you. Thank you for the $20 donation. Do you see the lack of move to get a right guard as a statement from that they think Bradford is good enough for them to win with? Sounds like they could have gotten Reese if they had wanted to overpay. That's basically kind of where it is at. And the fact the overpay for the Saints on Reese was because they still weren't sure they wanted to get rid of him or move off of him. I think that's how they view it right now, is Bradford is good enough to get by right now. And they look at it as, if they can lighten boxes, the O-line might be able to produce better in the run game. That's kind of the mindset Seattle, I think, is going with right now. Now, again, I think in the offseason, the right guard conversation is going to be a very big one. It is going to be something, because I know for a fact they really do like Jalen Sundell there. I know that they don't view the center necessarily even as I view it, where it's like, hey, we need to go get somebody. They may have to, because I think Olu may leave potentially. I think he's up at the end of this year or next year. Maybe they may trade Olu. I don't know. But I think right guard is going to be a spot you see with the Seahawks where they're going to be very aggressive, whether it's in the draft or whether it's in free agency or whether it's even via trade in the offseason to go get somebody to come in and be the starting right guard. And I will say they do really like Bryce Cabledew, but they don't think Bryce Cabledew is ready to compete for a starting job this year, having to go from tackle to guard now. They wanted to let him learn the switch, but that's why he's active all the time, is they do think he is someone that could potentially be a starter for them. Master Chief comes in with, I feel we will eventually get Max. I have a feeling that, when John's very persistent on something, John tends to get it. And a good case is Leonard Williams. Another good case is Marshawn Lynch. Another one's even Percy Harvin to a point. They both wanted Percy when they went out and got him. So when Seattle has an eye on somebody, and John does, unless that player completely, like a TJ Lang or a Kevin Zeitler just doesn't want to come to Seattle, Seattle ends up generally finding a way. What else we got in here? Hey, Dogzilla, good to see you in here, my friend. Nice to have you in the chat. Let's see. What else do we got? I'm looking. Islam, if the Hawks getting Sheed pissed off the Rams and Niners, I changed my grade from a B+ to an A. Islam, that's a fair point. Pissing off your division rivals is always a good thing to do. So, yeah, that's definitely something I've heard, is that they are not happy about the fact that Seattle ended up getting that. But the thing I'll say is, if you, for example, and Curtis Allen just posted this out on Twitter, so if any of you follow Curtis Allen, I would take a look at it. But he put up Juwan Jennings, Josh Palmer, and Shaheed stats over the last kind of bit of time here, and kind of because that's the ballpark you may be looking at an extension. Shaheed blows them out of the water in all categories, except for having a few less receiving yards and receptions than Josh Palmer. Everything else he's higher in. And the biggest thing with Shaheed is the run game factor. He can be a part of your run game. That's something that not a lot of the Seahawks receivers we can say can be a part of. And I think to a point, and this goes back to even things I've been saying about why they don't use the jet sweep more. Why is it not something that's a big part? Well, you don't want JSN running it all the time because you don't want to expose him to those hits. Outside of that, maybe Torrey Horton is, but another guy, maybe you don't want to expose to all those hits. Shaheed might be that reason that they don't have that completely in the offense, is because they just didn't have a guy they felt good enough doing it with. So now that they've got that, we might see more jet sweeps built into this offense, which is a staple of it. Hunter comes in with a good one here. Do you see us trying to recoup some draft picks in the offseason? Yes. I think you'll see. I don't think it'll be a lot. I don't think Seattle's going to go crazy and try and collect like 10 picks like we've known John to get in the past, but I do think they'll try and recoup some of it. Again, I will say this. There's a lot of evaluation time still between now and the draft. But everything I'm hearing, everything I'm even seeing myself evaluating players, this is not a great draft class. Like this is really, Rob Staten, he's saying the same thing over there. And I always trust Rob's opinion on things when it comes to the draft. It is not a great class. This is like 2013-esque or worse kind of a draft class. And 2027 is a very loaded class. In all aspects, it's a loaded class. So I think Seattle looks at it and goes, you know what? We're okay giving up some mid-round picks next year. They have a young, talented roster. They have a lot of depth on this roster. A lot of guys are under contract on this roster still. There's a good chance that Seattle will be able to still add some players, but I think, yeah, Hunter, they're probably going to try and recoup a few of the picks maybe that they, gave away. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. Matthews in here. I think this is almost more of a running game move than a passing game move. This should really help lighten the box. Yep, absolutely. We've got another donation in here. Thank you for that, Kumar. They were pushing hard for Crosby. Yes, they were. They really were pushing hard. Ian's got his predictions. And okay, I'm excited for this, Ian. I predict a big-time game-changing pass rusher being trade coming this offseason. Pay attention to the Raiders and Browns for Crosby and Garrett because I think we will get one of them in 2026. Yes. And the thing I will say is this push, from what I've heard, this push is coming really from Mike McDonald. He wants the elite pass rusher. And what's interesting about that is Mike has never really had an elite pass rusher. You go back – really, the last time you could say he had one was probably at Michigan when he had Aiden Hutchinson. But even at that point, Hutchinson wasn't really a guy yet. He just wasn't. They, I think, just got him actually in his freshman year when Mike's last year was there. So, like, Mike's never really had a guy. And even in Baltimore, he didn't really have a guy. And I think for Mike, the loss to Baltimore, from what I've heard, in Baltimore to Kansas City in the AFC Championship game and the loss to Tampa this year really affirm Mike's feeling that, yeah, I can scheme up and the D-line can do a really good job, but there are days where my scheme may not be right that week. Like we saw with Tampa, like he's openly admitted that was, hey, I kind of messed that game up. But I think in his eyes and how he's feeling is like, I can do that, but if I have a game wrecker, that guy can still go out and make plays and cause the offense problems. And I don't have to necessarily be as perfect all the time. So it definitely adds an element to Mike's defense, and I think you'd see more of it get unlocked. Let's see. DK is a Wookiee off of Twitter. Appreciate you being in here. With only 4 picks next year, do you think it'll mean we do look at extending Reek, Mafe, K9, etc.? We also need to extend others like Kendrick and Job. I think you'll see Job and Kendrick get extended. And I think with Kendrick, you'll probably see it kind of be what Job got this year. Job might get a 2-year deal because I know they really like him. I think out of that group of names there at the top that you put up there, Wookiee, between Reek, Mafe, and K9, I would say Reek probably has maybe the highest chance of being re-signed, and it's not a high chance. It really isn't. I'd say I'd put it at maybe 15%. I think they're going to tell them all, go test the market and come back with a number to us, because I don't think, they look at K9 unless he lights it up here in the second half of the season. I don't even think then they really trust it just with the injury history. Like, again, he's still managing a foot injury. There's just a bunch of things going on with that where I look at it and I go, you can go in the draft and find somebody that fits the scheme. And a name I'll put out there, and a guy that I think they could potentially be interested in, is Jonah Coleman out of Washington. He runs a similar scheme with Jed Fish. He can do a lot of the same things that K9 can do explosively, but he's a bit of a bigger back, stronger back, and in some respects more of a decisive back. And they have Charbonnet under contract for another year, and they really do like Charbonnet. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think, they may try and acquire another pick. They may get up to 6 picks total next year, but it'll be interesting. What else do we got in here? Oh, Dan's back in the chat here. I think this is back to the blew it point when he goes, how can you say they blew it when they were among the most aggressive teams going after a big fish, and then they landed a guy that will help them a ton. Agreed. Like, that's why I think it's a misguided view of what occurred, because they didn't come out with some big fish out of this. They did try. Pete does still have some influence there. I will say that. From what I've heard, Pete still does have influence there. And they do have, Gino locked up for 3 years and Pete locked up for 3 years, and a lot of the staff. I think there's a mindset that they tried to do it this year a certain way, and they want to try it a different way. And Max is kind of a piece in what Pete wants to keep building. Now, again, this may change dramatically during the offseason. And there may be changes between now and the offseason. They end up going 3-14 the rest of the way. Pete may not be there, and the GM again and Brady may go, yeah, cool, we're good with this. Let's move on. And Max may say, hey, I'm ready to leave. Like, I'm ready to get out of here. So I wouldn't say Pete doesn't have any influence, but he doesn't have the same influence he had in Seattle, but he still has some influence. Just looking through here. Jason, Hawkblogger thinks it's just a rental and they're playing the comp game aiming at 2027. Thoughts? They may. I think, again, this is John Schneider's MO, is that he'll bring guys in and he won't give them a contract right away. He wants to see how they fit and jive with this team. Like, if Shaheed comes in and it's an absolute horror show, yeah, they're 100%. And I think they'd get a 4th round 2027 comp pick potentially, I think is what they could end up with. But I also look at it and I go, from everything I'm hearing, that they do view him as a potential extension piece as well. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing. Again, it all depends on how Shaheed fits going down these final 8 games. No different than Leonard, no different than Ernest Jones. Like, if Leonard had been a total, Sheldon Richardson type of dumpster fire where no one on the team really liked him and it just didn't work, Seattle probably wouldn't have kept Leonard around. Like, that's kind of the way John's done business the last few times on these trades. What else do we got going on in here? Let's see. Jason, I missed it. Why do we know they were so hard for Max? Just sources I have, Jason, that are quite tapped in to what the Seahawks are doing, and in a lot of ways what the league's doing and what the league was, kind of feeding out through this period. They, and I've had it confirmed by other people, and we've heard other people, post about it and talk about it as well. The Seahawks very much are in on Max Crosby, and again, they, I think, aren't done down, being around that kind of rabbit hole there and figuring it out. DK comes in again with, I like the idea of Max would have no chance. Now that he's gone, we don't have the bargaining chips with Reek and Mafe potentially being up. Yes, but they're, I'll say that there's still other pieces you could move potentially. It may be more draft capital. There's other ways around it. I don't know if Reek and Mafe are the only bargaining chips that we're going to make that deal work. Again, if they move off from Pete, it may not be a Reek and Mafe situation. That was maybe if that was going to happen with the Raiders today, that's probably a bigger Pete influence in that situation on those type of players, because he drafted both of them. He loves both of them. If they have a new coach, it could turn into a whole new situation. So it'll be an interesting one to see what happens, how they pursue it in the offseason. Amy, I'd love to get Coleman. I am right there with you, Amy. I think he'd be a fantastic running back for the Seahawks offense. Ian says the same thing. A running back will be selected. Yes, I agree. They will definitely be selecting a running back in 2026. I'm curious what the league-wide view is from the player's perspective on coming to Seattle to play. Will it become a place guys are itching to go to finally? If you guys remember back in like 2012, 2013 with Pete, when his whole, player first, that whole mentality really started to take over. You guys like Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett want to come play here, like, and play with the guys that were on the LOB at that time, and Richard Sherman and Cam and Earl, and be a part of this culture, it is now turning into that again with Mike in this defense. Like, guys are wanting to come to Seattle. And now from what I'm hearing is it's even on the offensive side and being, here with JSN and Sam Darnold and, a lot of those pieces. And even with Klint Kubiak as the OC, like, Seattle is becoming a destination spot again for players to want to come up here and be a part of this and what's growing here, because it's, the facility, the organization itself is top notch. You saw that with what you heard from guys coming back for this 50th season, and that whole group that got together and how first class they all talk about the Seahawks organization and how they handle everything. Now that Seattle's got a, young, innovative head coach and the way they do things and the way this defense is playing, this team is playing as a whole, it is Matthew is making this team a destination spot yet again for free agents and players to want to come and be a part of. What else we got in here? Max comes in. Bless you, content creators, chatting with the fans all day. It's like you all are taking shifts. I'm loving the Shaheed deal. JSN Horton Shaheed is going to be crazy explosive. Yeah, I guess it kind of works out that way that we all kind of just slot in, conveniently throughout. And yeah, the one thing I'll say is the Seahawks content creator, community is fantastic. From, Dan Viens, Seahawks Forever, and Brandon Kane, to Hawk Blogger, to 12 Talk and the guys over on the UK, and Josh and Mitch, even to Field Goals itself, the website, Mookie Alexander and the group over there that do such a fantastic job. And it's a great community to be a part of and contribute to. The small little bit that I do, it's fantastic. And it's great to call those individuals friends and people that, I'm able to collaborate with and do different things with. But yeah, it's a lot of fun when days like this happen and we're all able to kind of give our, vibes on what we've heard and what we've seen on the Seahawks. So, and I'm glad you're enjoying the content, Max. That's awesome. What else do we got? Dogzilla comes in with, I watched a highlight video of Shaheed. A lot of it was deep down the sideline, both left and right. Yeah, he's going to move around. You're going to be able to attack a lot of the field with him. It's going to open up things in the middle. It's going to force teams to have to get into a too-high shell at some point. They're going to start playing that more against Seattle than they probably expected, and I think you'll see the run game start to take off. I would not be shocked if we're not talking in maybe another month here, that all of a sudden Seattle's run game is so much more effective now than it was in the first half of the season. And we're going to all look back and go, oh, right, we traded for a true deep threat that can really take the top off. And teams have had to, bounce out of the single high shell and rolling down stack boxes to now they're backing out into the two high shell because Shaheed and JSN, Torrey Horton and Kupp and the tight ends are just having a field day when they're in their single high looks. Let's see here. What else do we got? Oh, Dan. Dan with the taking shifts part. Yes, that is very well done. Very well done. Yeah, so honestly, unless you guys have any more questions, I'm probably going to wrap it up there right now because I know there's a whole bunch of other content that's been put out today. I just wanted to jump on here with you guys, kind of give you my thoughts on this move for Seattle and what else I had heard. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what the Seattle Seahawks are like now over the back half and how much this affects everything to do with this team, where this team goes. Got a number notification here. It sounds like Rashid Shaheed will still be wearing number 22 when he does come and play for Seattle. So if anyone's looking to get a jersey of him, if he starts lighting it up, it'll be a number 22 jersey. So it will be exciting. And again, guys, tomorrow night, I will be recording a small preview show with Blake Murphy-Allen of Redbird Reboot Podcast to preview the Cardinals game. So that'll be coming out Thursday morning. So make sure you guys have your notifications clicked for that. And then Friday night, me and Mookie Alexander will be back at it again, doing a State of the Seahawks. So we'll talk and get Mookie's perspective on, the trade deadline, how he feels about Shaheed coming in. And we'll talk a little bit more live with you guys about what's going on going into that Cardinals game on Sunday. And then obviously Monday night, we'll have Seahawks Aftermath with myself and Michael Thompson, which we just did last night. So you'll see that again on the Monday following the Hawks game to kind of recap that game, and we'll get all the sound bites and such from what Mike McDonald and the group say after, hopefully, another Seahawks victory over the Cardinals. So with that being said, everyone, appreciate you all tuning in for this. And as always, stay loud, be proud, and go Hawks.